some that will finance at 100%, but most of them won't. They're going to lend you 80% to the loan to value. That's the appraised amount of the property. So you want to make sure that you always have enough money in your savings to take care of closing costs or any additional fees that may come up. So once upon a time, it was recommended to save about 20% of a home's purchase price for the down payment. However, times have changed, as I mentioned earlier, depending on the lender as well as the loan type, i.e. conventional, FHA, VA, or USDA, as I discussed earlier. This hefty number can be substantially more or less. Speak to your lender because you want to know beforehand what you are required to have for your down payment. Each one is different. I've been in situations where people have put nothing down. I've been in situations where people have had to put as much as 20% down. I've been in situations where people have had to put as much as 40% down. So know what they require. Don't walk in there. And usually the higher down payments are people that have some sketchy credit. So keep in mind, the larger the down payment that you bring to the table, the more equity you have and the lower your monthly payments will be. So the next step in the process is you want to find a realtor you can trust. That being me or Latron, I thought I'd throw that little plug in there. Find a realtor you can trust. Your real estate agent will present you and present to you or represent you throughout the home buying process to ensure that you find the right home. They're going to be honest with you. If the house is really too much, a good, reputable, trustworthy realtor should tell you that. Because the last thing you want to do is buy this big house, but you guys are sitting on the floor, you're eating Van Camp's pork and beans because you can't afford grocery. You want to be mindful of what you're looking at, what you're looking to purchase. So get a realtor that you can trust. Because if you can't trust them, the likelihood of you being able to work with them is not good. That trust is everything. So you want a knowledgeable and trustworthy realtor. If you don't trust your realtor, it'll be difficult to work together. Next slide, please. The pre-qualification, pre-approval process. This is where the car leaves the road for me. I can't tell you how many people, Roz, I want to see a house. I want to see a house. I'm ready to buy. I'm ready to buy. Oh, okay, yeah, you're ready to buy. Okay, have you been pre-qualified or pre-approved? What's that? I don't know what that is. So here's the news flash. You have to be pre-qualified or pre-approved in order to know what you can afford. So let's talk about the difference. So during this step, you'll select and meet with a lender, the type of loan, and your lender, the type of loan your lender makes. I'm sorry, I'm going too fast. The type of loan that your lender provides for you determines if your offer gets accepted or not. But sometimes the loan type may not be a good fit for you. So that will also wake up the possibility that you and the lender may not be a good fit, because you don't want a lender that's going to put you in a loan type that doesn't work for you, or a lender that doesn't cooperate with your realtor, that just withholds information, waits to 2 days before closing. Oh, there's a problem. The loan hasn't gone to underwriting. You run. If you see that, if you're a first-time home buyer, if you are a seasoned home buyer, and you get to that point, find another lender. So getting pre-qualified for a loan is not a guarantee that you will be actually able to obtain a loan. I'm going to say that again. Getting pre-qualified for a loan is not a guarantee that you will actually be able to obtain a loan. When you get pre-qualified, this is the lender giving you an estimate. He's just doing an aerial view. He's not doing a deep dive. He's giving you an estimate of your finances based on the information you provide. So getting pre-approved, however, is totally different. When you get pre-approved, the lender is going to do a deep dive. He's going to do a deep investigation on your finances. This includes verification of your income, your assets, your credit rating. When you are pre-approved for a loan, you are guaranteed that you will be able to obtain the loan, assuming your finances don't change between the pre-approval and closing on the home. So know the difference. Know the difference. I can't stress that enough. Pre-qualified is not a guarantee, but to be pre-approved pretty much seals the deal for you. It is a guarantee. Next slide, please. So we're at the process where you've looked at your finances, you've pulled your credit report, everything is good there. You've either been pre-qualified or pre-approved, and now you're. I think did we skip one? I'm sorry. If not, don't worry about it. Yeah, right there. Now you want to start the home search process. You want to start looking. Once you've met with your real estate agent to discuss and analyze your needs, it's time to select and view properties. So what you want to do here is view properties that meet your pre-approval or pre-qualification. If you've been pre-approved for 250,000, don't go look at a $400,000 house. That's a waste of your time and mine because you're not gonna get it. So it's no need in going in there looking at it. Stay within what you've been approved for. Stay within your budget. Stay within, knowing what you can afford. That is so important because so many people don't understand that. You never want to go and look for a house because that means if you're looking for a house that's more than what you've been pre-approved or pre-qualified for, you've got some cash to bring to the table. So know that. As you're looking, keep your priorities in mind. It's highly unlikely that your listing will be perfect. Try to avoid being too picky. Always go and view the houses in person. Try to avoid sight unseen purchases. When you hear those words, don't fall for it. It's so many people, guys, that have bought homes and have not seen those homes, and now they're in a mess. So you always want to put your feet on that property and check it out. Look for any irregularities. Look for anything that may be wrong. Because a lot of times we go in these houses and it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. No, not me. I'm looking. Okay, there's a brown spot right there. There's a gap. The floor is sinking. I'm looking for all the bad stuff. That's what I go in there and look for because I want you to be aware as a buyer that you're not buying a money pit. So don't get caught up in the beauty. Look for the jacked up stuff. Look for the stuff that's messed up because then you're going to know how much is this going to cost me? What am I looking at to have to come in here and remediate this? What am I looking at to have to come in here and make repairs? Are we going to be able to negotiate this with the seller? Is this something that they're willing to negotiate the price down? So you have a lot of tools in your arsenal, but you want to make sure you're not caught up with just the beauty of something. Look for the stuff that aren't always you can't always see it with the naked eye. You got to look for brown spots. Look for cracks in the foundation. Look for little powdered stuff laying around the foundation because there may be termite issues there. So you want to look. Don't get caught up in the beauty of it. So the more houses you see, also they start to kind of merge. They all start to kind of look the same. So as you're going through these houses and trying to make some decisions, take some notes because you want to write down the things that you like about the property and some of your dislikes. That way, after you've toured, maybe one or two properties, you can sit down and have these conversations with your realtor and let them know, hey, these are the things that I liked about the house. These are the things that I do not like about the house. Or if there are any questions or information that you need from the seller, the realtor can go back and ask those questions. So always take notes. Make notes to yourself. What worked, what you didn't like, what you did like, and it'll make you your ability to kind of scale down the buying process a little better. Because again, like I said, you start going in and out of these houses. I've seen enough shiplap to last me probably the rest of my life. But again, it all starts to run together because people are into shiplap, people are into subway tile, people are into the laminate flooring. It all starts to look the same after a while. It's beautiful, but make sure you have your priorities. Make sure you know what you're looking for as a buyer. Don't get caught up in the beauty, but make those notes. If I like this, or I didn't like this, or the rooms were the right size, or the rooms were too small. You want to make those type notes. So also you want to check the style, the size, and the physical condition of the home. Always check out the neighborhood, the crime statistics. And if you have school-aged children, check out the school districts. This is due diligence you can do yourself as a buyer. As a realtor, that is not a material fact. I do not, or myself or Latron, we don't have to share that with you. I've had many people come to me, well, how's the school system? Here's the website. Check it out. Because you don't want to be held liable for giving incorrect information. Oh, it's a wonderful school system. You don't know that. you know. And I'm probably the last person to ask anything about Gaston County. They probably got my picture on the wall somewhere because I go in and I fight for my children. So that's why one of them is not in Gaston County and the other one is. So they know us. They know my husband and they know me. So, that's again due diligence you can do on yourself. So know where you are buying your home. Do your research. Check the area. I know when my husband and I were buying, we would ride through the neighborhood. We pray. We catch each other coming through there. What you doing here? What you doing here? We ride through there and pray. We wanted to see, well, what are these people like after work? We can ride through here surely during the day. Nobody's here, but around 5 or 6 o'clock, what are they doing? So that's what we would do. I would advise anybody do the same because if they out there on the corner, passing little bags and doing stuff, then that's not the neighborhood for you. And everything can be beautiful when people are at work, but when it gets dark, that's when we kind of see the true picture of stuff. So next slide, guys. So making the offer, this is after you've toured some homes and you've come down to the point where, hey, I like this one. This is the house I want to make an offer on. So in making an offer, you want to find the house that you want to buy. You want to ask the real estate agent to run a comparative analysis to determine a fair price based on the recent sales of similar properties in the area. You want to know if the price that is being listed or the price that they're asking for, is this compatible to other houses or comparative to other houses that have already sold? You want houses that have sold within the last 6 months. You don't want anything that sold, 5 years ago. You want current market data. So ask that realtor to run a comparative market analysis to determine if it's a fair price based on the recent sales of similar homes in the area. The less interest there is, and this is a known fact, if there's a house and there's no interest, and the longer the house is set on the market, the more power you have to negotiate. A lot of what's going on now, people think that they can come out here in a seller's market and tell that seller, oh, I think you need to come down 10,000. That seller's going to be like, next. They don't want to hear that because they don't have to hear that. In the state of North Carolina, they do not have to come down. They can ask 20, 40, 50,000 over listing price. And this is what a lot of these houses are going for. It blows my mind that some of the offers that are out here for some of these houses, because inventory is low and so people are out here. I mean, it's almost cutthroat the way things are being done. So you want to make that realtor run that comparative analysis so that you know that your price that you're being asked to pay is conducive or comparative. Beyond the price you plan to offer, speak with your real estate agent about whether it makes sense to include contingencies in your offer. A contingency is a stipulation included in an offer that states that if a particular condition is not met, the buyer is free to walk away from the contract without repercussions. So here's the news flash. Many sellers don't like the contingencies. They frown on it. Matter of fact, your offer 9 times out of 10 will go in the trash. They just do not like it. They want people who are ready to move. They want people who are ready to buy, that have either sold their home and are ready to move. They don't want any contingencies. Every time I've written a contract and there's been a contingency in it, I don't even get a call. And so trying to explain that to a buyer who really wanted the house can be kind of hard. I had one buyer that just didn't understand that you need to actively list your house before you start trying to buy one. You can't. A lot of people out here now are like, well, if I sell my house, I won't have anywhere to go. Well, again, that's part of the planning process, because sometimes you may have to sell your house. These houses are not going in weeks. They're going in like same day. It can hit the market and it's under contract an hour later or 10 minutes later. That's how fast stuff is going. And again, a lot of people, you've got a lot of investors that are buying these properties sight unseen, and they're cash offers. So that's kind of hard for a conventional buyer to compete with. So again, you want to know beforehand when you start hearing these words, well, what does that mean? You'll know, hey, maybe we don't need to offer. And this is for people that are already own a home that are looking to maybe sell. If you have a contingency, if it's contingent upon you selling your house, you want to have that house actively listed. Next slide. So during the step of making the offer, it's important that you have, and I'm saying this again, I can't say it enough, you got enough money saved for your earnest money fee, your due diligence fee, your appraisal fee, and your inspection fee. These are fees that you are going to incur. Now, again, it depends on the state, but in North Carolina, due diligence fees are accepted. South Carolina is optional. You don't have to do a due diligence fee. But again, the earnest money, this deposit is money that you provide up front to show the seller that you are serious about the offer, making the seller feel more comfortable about taking their home off the market. The amount the buyer offers to the seller for the earnest money deposit is negotiable. You can decide what you want to offer. Now, here's the caveat. In this market, you do not want to lowball or insult that seller. Many buyers seem to think, oh, you're working for the seller. No, I'm not working for the seller. I'm working for you, and I'm working in your best interest. But do know that when you hire a realtor, the buyer, and you might want to write this down, write it in bold, the buyer does not pay the realtor's commission. The seller does. So that is something to take heed to. The buyer does not, unless the seller has decided not to pay the commission. And then that becomes a conversation that you as a realtor and your buyer need to have. Because again, none of us work for free, but you want to make sure you have that conversation, knowing, hey, out the gate, who's responsible for taking care of the commission portion. So the earnest money is a deposit due within 5 business days upon the acceptance of an offer. This fee is held in an escrow account by the closing attorney or the title company, and it is credited toward the purchase price at closing. So if you're buying a $250,000 house and you have $10,000 in earnest money being held in an escrow account by a closing attorney, that $10,000 comes off the purchase price, which is now $240,000. This is money you have put down, and it goes towards your purchase. So I think that's very important to know, because people are like, well, I got to put all this money down. Everything you put down comes off your purchase amount. So this fee is fully refundable should the buyer terminate the contract before the due diligence period is ended. If the buyer decides after the due diligence period has ended not to move forward, you lose not only the earnest money deposit, but you lose the due diligence fee. So let's talk about a due diligence fee. So again, I said a few minutes ago, depending on the state you purchase your home in, it can be optional. North Carolina, not optional. Most people want a due diligence fee. South Carolina, it's definitely optional. So the due diligence fee is due within 24 hours of the acceptance of an offer. So the minute the seller signs the offer to purchase and the buyer sells the offer to purchase, you are now under contract. You have 24 hours to submit those funds via personal check with tracking from UPS or FedEx. You have 24 hours to have that check sent to the seller. Next slide, please. So could you go back? I'm sorry, I think I may have skipped. So we were talking about the due diligence, and I'm going to define what that is. So depending on the state, I did state that you purchase your home in North Carolina, the due diligence fee is due within 24 hours of acceptance of an offer. This fee, now I'm ready for you to change it, I'm sorry. This fee is a negotiated amount, so you can decide how much you want to offer for due diligence. There's not a set amount. But again, here's the caveat. In this market, it's a seller's market. So they're not looking at anything. I want to offer $500. Okay, thank you. The next offer. They're looking for people who are serious about buying their home. They're looking for serious contenders. If you're coming with, I want to offer 5, 9 times out of 10, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be them considering you. But again, it's a seller's market, so they are really not looking at the low due diligence offers. So you want to make sure that you can afford to offer a due diligence fee that is going to make your offer stand out. So again, it's a negotiated amount which compensates the seller for the time to take their home off the market while the buyer completes inspections and appraisals. As the buyer decide not to proceed with the purchase of the home during the due diligence period, and this period is about a span of 21 days. If you decide not to move forward, this fee is non-refundable. So the minute you send it, it's over. It's gone. You do not get this fee back. The due diligence check is made payable to the seller and should be mailed within 24 hours of the acceptance of an offer. So if the seller, now this is the only time that a due diligence fee would be refunded to you. If the seller, for any reason, breaches the contract, this fee may be refundable, but it may require legal action. So again, due diligence is non-refundable. In South Carolina, due diligence fee is optional. So keep that in mind. Next slide, please. During the due diligence period, this is when the inspections are ordered and the closing is scheduled with the attorney. This is also when the lender will order an appraisal, and any additional loan documentation is provided to the lender so the loan can be submitted to underwriting. Please get the information to the lender as soon as possible. You do not want your closing date pushed back because you failed to provide the required documentation. Never have a lender waiting on you. You need to make sure you're 3-4 steps ahead of them. Always make sure you provide any documentation that they need. So during this process, the attorney will order the title and check if it's clear, if there's any liens. They'll request a survey if you so wish. They'll also do any type of investigation that needs to ensure that the buyer feels comfortable with the purchase. Next slide, please. Insurance and utilities. We talked about that a little bit earlier. At this point, you have you're about 1 to 2 weeks away from your closing. And if it's the buyer's responsibility, and hear me please, it's the buyer's responsibility to schedule all utilities and secure your homeowner's insurance. You have to take the lead on that. So the music that is just melodious to your ears is that you're clear to close. That's what you want to hear. This means the underwriting team has approved all your documents. You should receive a preliminary closing disclosure. You as the buyer, along with the realtor, should review the closing disclosure for any inaccuracies, make sure it's accurate, and to include any costs that you have to pay, including your down payment. You want to know before you sit down at that closing table how much money you need to have, what that check needs to be made out for. Next slide. And here's the day, closing. This is where all the documents are finalized by signing at the attorney's office. The buyer will wire funds that are due at closing. Be sure to call the attorney from the bank to verify the account number before wiring funds. Y'all, there's so much wire fraud going on now. You really have to be careful with that. It's really best to just get an official check from your bank and take it to closing with you. It's just too much wire fraud going on. You know, technology is good, but it's just, you have to be careful. So it's always also a good practice to call again after you've authorized the wire, just to make sure that just to verify that they received it. So again, please note that wire transfers are treated as cash. They are not a deposit and are not protected by the FDIC. So you want to keep that in mind before even using that as a process. So once the deed's recorded, you can receive your keys and you can move into your new house. And that is the process. So I'm going to open up the floor for any questions anybody has. Just keep in mind there are no dumb questions. So this is to inform you so that you will know how to be successful in this process. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Always best to put down as much as you can because you want to have skin in the game. It's going to give you more equity in your home and it's going to keep those payments lower. So always put as much down as you can. Anybody else? Yes, sir. I paid him for that. As much as people don't want to hear it, you should sell your home and then buy. I talked earlier, most sellers don't like contingencies, and anytime they see that your purchase of their home is contingent upon you selling your home, they're like, next. You know, they won't even consider you, because why would they? You know, if someone has the ability to, it's not contingent upon the sale of their house, they're ready to move in, they're ready to close, why wouldn't they look at that person? So, always sell first. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's is it 5 or 10 now? I think it's 10,000 now. Yeah, definitely. You want to check with the city that you live in. There are programs that will help with down payment assistance. I advise anyone, do not leave any money on the table. Check out what's always available to you, not only just in your city, but also in your state. HUD has programs that have different grants and stuff that you can check out too. Some of them are grants and some of them are loans. So when you're investigating or doing your due diligence, make sure you know the difference. That if you're applying for a grant, this is money you do not have to pay back. If you're applying for a loan, then there you will have to pay that back. So check with your city, check with your state to see what type of programs that they offer to help with down payment assistance. I'm gonna come here and then I'll come there. Well, because one thing, most lenders, and it depends on if that lender has based the proceeds from the sale of your home on you being able to get their loan. So again, have that conversation with your lender. But again, sellers just do not want to see, because it makes them think you have no money. That's just where their mind goes. You have no money, so you have to sell your house in order to buy mine. Nah, I'm not interested. Next. So you always want to position yourself so that you look appealing to that seller. You don't want to have yourself out there looking like you're more of a risk, because you're contingent upon selling your existing property to have proceeds to buy the next. But they're always looking for someone who can be approved without having to sell their home. You know, they always look for that. That's just their mindset. Yes, believe it or not, there are some lenders that work with these down payment assistance programs, so they don't look on that unfavorably. A lot of first time home buyers use those programs. It's really a wise tool to utilize. But I can get you the contact information for the city of Gastonia. I can also give you the contact information for Mecklenburg County, and also the contact for HUD, Housing Urban Development, for the state of North Carolina. I can get you that information if you're interested. You have, right, right. And believe it or not, we have had that happen. I had a buyer call me about a house that was on the market for $30,000, and it was a 5 bedroom, 3 bath house. It was a joke. Somebody had actually put this house on the market and listed it for $30,000. We had multiple phone calls about that. That's where having a good realtor that's going to come in, and do the due diligence and make the calls and find out, is this a live one or is this a dud? So it's imperative that you work with a realtor who's going to dig in. I'm a digger. I find it. If it's to be found, I'm gonna find it. A lot of people don't want to deal with me because I'm gonna find it. I had a gentleman tell me about some covenants and restrictions that, oh, this was done because this was done after the fact. No, sir. These were recorded in 93. She bought the house in 2003. And, so I'm that person. I'm going in, I'm reading the fine print. I mean, I was just up this morning to like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm that person. So get a realtor that's going to work with you and for you. No, you're fine. And then I'm gonna come here. I think Misha had her, and then Deborah, I'll come to you. Mhm. Right, right. Well, again, go with your first instinct because usually you can tell that they're not up to snuff. Right. Don't ignore the red flags when they come up. And if you're not sure, ask somebody that can dig in for you and find out. Always, but never go with something when you got a gut feeling. Always go with your instinct. If it's something is not right or doesn't feel right, don't do it. Because 9 times out of 10, you're spot on. Absolutely. It could be all kinds of things. A vacant lot. It could be all kinds of things. It could be tied up, with different people owning pieces of the land. Um, it could not perk. Can it even build on? Can you even build on it? So there's so many different facets, but a good realtor is going to get in there and find out, okay, has there been a percolation test done on this? Can you even build on it? What's wrong with it? Is it in a floodplain? You're going to ask those questions. What's wrong with it? Has it flooded? Okay, the house, I traced one all the way back to 1902. Yeah. I was so impressed with myself. I couldn't believe it. 1902, because nobody had record of the house. But I traced that thing all the way back. It was a house that used to be on the property. So, like I said, a good realtor is going to go in and dig. I mean, and they won't stop until they find it. They'll lock in like a pit bull. So, just let me know. I'll find it. I'll go back to 1812 if I need to. But yeah, it can be found. Mishla. Right. The first and foremost, and I started out this part of the workshop, know your credit. Stay on top of your credit report. Pay your bills on time, and save your money. You want to build, and Latron's going to touch on that in his segment, but you want to build a healthy credit history because when you do move, a lot of people in this market are doing a lot of knee jerk. Interest rates are wonderful, but they're trying to buy now because interest rates are low. But does that really mean it's a good time for you to buy? Because again, inventory is low. So do your due diligence, do your homework. Is this a good market for me to buy in? You always want to do that up front because you know what you're looking for. Don't cut corners. So, if you need to save, always put yourself in a position to save your money. Pay your bills on time. Know your credit report. Know what's on it. Know dispute anything that shouldn't be on there. Always stay ahead of that. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's just being um, proactive rather than reactive. Because a lot of what happens is people get in the process and then they have to be reactive because they weren't proactive on the onset. Always position yourself for better and for greater. So you want to make sure that your credit history. We're depending on other people to pull our credit. We need to know what's on there. And if it shouldn't be on there, we need to get it off. Okay? But don't go out here and pay these repair people. You can do that yourself for free. So, just know your credit history. budget. Don't go out here, buying stuff just because you want it. Do you need it? Prepare. Because the thing that we kind of fall short is we don't look down the road. We most of us have been taught how to work for money, but we have not been taught how to make our money work for us. And again, Latron, I'm not going to get in your segue, but I just kind of wanted to put that out there. We need to know how to make our monies work for us. Real estate ownership is the fastest way to build generational wealth. So you want to position yourself so not only are you having a property, a primary residence, but you want to position yourself to have some investment properties so that you can build your portfolio, your retirement portfolio. You have to always stay ahead of the game. So yes, prepare, know your credit report, save, pay your bills on time. And I think I'm gonna come here. Hey, Gina. Most of the city first-time home buyer programs, you do need to reside in that city. I think that's about the only stipulation. I think the second part of your question, you're talking more about loan type. I know with the USDA loans, those are government-backed loans where they do want you to find homes in more rural areas that do require some repair work. They're not the best homes, but again, you can usually buy them at a much cheaper cost and no down payment. So that's what kind of makes that USDA loan look a little more attractive to a first time home buyer. But I have gone in some of those homes and I'm like, sweetie, just stay where you are and save your money. I just wouldn't advise because some of them really need a lot of repair. You know, um, if asked, I believe that would be the reply I would give, but I wasn't asked, so I couldn't give that response. But again, some of those homes do need a lot of work. So again, that will be a conversation that you would have with your lender. What loan type works best for you? But the more prepared you are up front by knowing your credit history, saving your money, paying your bills on time, you better position yourself for better interest rates and a better loan type, if that makes sense. Well, it depends. Most good lenders will put a remediation plan in process for you. If you go and apply for a loan and for whatever reason come up short, your credit score is not where it needs to be, a good reputable lender will show you the steps to get yourself in a position, be it 6 months to a year. They'll tell you how long it would take for you to better position yourself to buy a home. The key to it is actually doing what they ask you to do. That's where a lot of people fall short. They go out here and make these just off the cuff purchases. So when you're buying a home, you do not make any major purchases. That's first and foremost. Do not, because that will go against you. That will kill your approval process, and even they can disqualify you for the loan. So never go out and make any big purchases when you're going through the process of buying a home. But again, it just depends on your lender. You could check with your lender. I know we have some lenders that will put together a mediation plan for you. If you're interested in it, I can send you their information and you can reach out to them. And what they'll do is run a credit report and put a plan in place for you to get in a better position. Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're applying for or vetting a lender, you want to pick out three reputable lenders. Now, does that mean 3 times that they pull your credit report? Yes. Can that affect your score? Yes. But again, limit it to three. And I think there's, and I'm not sure, Latron will touch on that again when he comes up, if that does affect you, those multiple pools. So he'll talk about that a little bit. Yes, ma'am. You're welcome. We'll have that conversation off the cuff. uh, it's not impossible, right? Uh, I don't think you. I don't think it does. I don't think you have to. I think you can have purchased a home before. Those funds can be available to you if you have bought a home before. I don't think it has anything to do with time. Um, so again, it would be best to check with the individuals that head up those programs and ask them, what all of their criteria is, and that way you'll know, be a little bit better prepared on how to get the what you're looking for as far as assistance. I thought I saw one more hand. I did. As far as mhm, right, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and it's very competitive out here. And I think a lot of times too, some buyers get frustrated with the competitiveness of it all, but you have to have some thick skin and realize that it's just the market that we're in right now. It's just not a buyer's market. It's the sellers are calling the shot. Know the market you're in. Is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? If it's a buyer's market, that means they have a lot of inventory. I want you guys to kind of know what these different markets mean. If it's a buyer's market, that means there's multiple houses to buy. There's plenty of housing to buy. So you have more you have more power to negotiate down the price. If it's a seller's market, not the case. That means supply is low and they know, hey, you need a house. I have a house. What you want to do? You know. So again, know what market you're in and know if it's a market that is one for you to buy in or even sell. Right. Well, really, it's not because you have a lot of investors. Again, Latron, he'll touch on this. I keep kind of dipping into his segue, but you've got a lot of the hedge fund investors that are coming into these neighborhoods and they're buying these properties. What really shocked me is a lot of the subdivisions with homeowners associations are allowing for a certain percentage of those properties to become rental properties, which to me, I can't fathom that because the whole purpose of a homeowners association is to maintain the integrity of that subdivision, to keep the subdivision profitable for the people that are buying, that live there. So now they're allowing anywhere from upwards about 40% of the housing in those neighborhoods can be for rental properties. And the rents are astronomical that some of these companies are charging for these properties. Some of them are going for 2,000 a month. I mean, why would you pay that for a rental? But they can do that because a lot of them have money to be able to come in and buy these properties. And then you've got your average buyer who's trying to compete with a lot of these hedge funds, and you really can't because they have cash on hand to be able to go in these communities and buy these houses. And then if they're not, renting them out, they're flipping them and then they're selling them. I don't know if any of you remember the house over I think it's over near Tabernacle, near the historic district. It was an old, dilapidated house, and that thing sat on the market. I think they wanted 99,000 for it. I mean, it was hideous. Mold everywhere. The house was busted. I mean, tore up. Cabinet doors hanging off. Holes in the floor. Holes in the wall. It was awful. They went in there. They bought that house, and now that house is on the market today. It's active today for $439,000 from 99,000. So when I tell you it's competitive, it's very competitive. Now my question is, 499,000 to 439,000. What is comparable? Any good realtor is going to look at the comps. Now, how am I going to list this? Are we going to get 439 for it? And will it appraise? Those are the questions you always want to ask. You need that comparative market analysis so you know that that price that they're listing that house for is comparative to the houses that have sold. You know, I'm working with someone now. The house is overpriced. It's overpriced by $100,000. And it has sat on the market for 225 days because the people around it know that it's overpriced. Again, know your market. I think, did I see your hand? It can be either loans or grants. They have a lot of programs. That's why I was sharing. You want to know which one you're applying for. I can get you the website, and what you can do is go out there. They have what they call home mortgage advisors, where they'll help you and explain each one of the grants or loans that they offer to find one that's a better fit for you. So they'll advise you on which one works. They think will be a good fit for you. If that helps, I can gladly give you that website. Anybody else have any questions? Any comments or concerns? And thanks, guys. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be able to share something I'm very passionate about. I want us to be educated on this process. If you have any questions, please feel free to pull me to the side, Latron to the side, and ask any questions you may have. We are helpful. We're very approachable, and we want to help. We want to make sure that you are successful in your home buying process. Yes, sir. Earnest money deposit. Great point. Yeah, absolutely. Know the difference, and make your offer stand out. And again, having a good, reputable realtor, they're going to help you in that area. Did anybody else have any questions? Right, right, right. Mhm. Ooh, that's brutal honesty. Yeah, they're all over the place, making these phone calls and trying to get people to sell their homes. I think my husband was telling me the other day, and a gentleman had called him about, we'll give you $1,100 right now if you decide to sell your home. Make sure we'll be the ones to list it. I'm like, I don't want your $1,100. You're trying to shortchange me. If this house is sold, I'm selling it. So really, it's crazy. But you've got a lot of people that are out here, taking advantage of people. Because again, it's a lot of scams. Just know who you can go to find out, hey, is this legit? Like I said, if you come to either me or Latron, we're going to find out. Oh, we definitely going to find out. Right. Just do your homework on everything, so that you're not caught unaware. Again, there are first time home buyers programs. There is the Donna, the program you work for, Habitat for Humanity. Check them out. Donna works for Habitat. She's a great resource. You can pull her to the side and ask her about some contact information if that may be a route for you to go. I do know you have to put in certain hours in building those homes, and there are some qualifications that you have to go through in order to qualify for that as well. Okay, so she was saying with COVID-19, they're not doing any construction on people's existing homes. I think they're going in and do repairs on it. Or okay, so they're not doing any of that right now because of COVID. Is there any time that may go back to? Do they have a projection for that? So yeah, definitely talk. Some of you that are first-time home buyers, check out that program and see if that is a way you want to go. Um, so there's a lot of information out here. Just make sure you do the due diligence on it. So, anybody else? Again, thank you guys so much. I'm going to switch gears and turn it over to Latron. I think we're willing and dealing, but thank you. If you have any questions, I'm sitting right over here. Just hit me up. Thanks, guys.
How's everybody doing today? That's good. That's good. So, y'all give Sister Rosalind a hand. Great presentation on home ownership. A lot of good information, especially if you're, if you're a first-time home buyer, or if you're an existing home buyer or existing home owner, and you're actually looking to move either into a property for the first time, or upgrading, or just selling a property that you have. Now, obviously, I do have a presentation, and I do have some time in order to give that presentation. But I know a lot of preachers, they say whenever you get up on the pulpit, depending on what the Lord give you, sometimes there may be a different message that needs to be given. So, just listening to some of the questions, a lot of you guys have some questions. I just want to take some time to answer a few of those before I get into mine. First of all, I think Mitchell, you had a question regarding like first-time home buyers, right? Well, specifically, obviously for first-time home buyers, there are a lot of programs, and just like Sister Rosalind said, you want to definitely check with your lender. Lender has a list of programs like first-time home buyers, down payment assistance. They have all that information, and they can give it to you and determine. Even many of them, like a lot of the good ones that you were saying, will look at your situation and see, okay, what programs can I even bring together, to make sure, like if you have a goal of being able to walk into a home with no money down, many of them, they can put programs together in order to make that happen, right? So it's just a matter of talking to them, seeing what they have available. Now, some cases, it may be a situation where you may have to come up with something a little bit, but there could be a situation where you don't have to do anything. So better to consult with a lender in order to be able to determine what those programs are. And so we also had some questions about credit. And I can't remember who asked the question, but anytime you go out and do an application for anything, they're going to be pulling your credit. So they're going to do what's considered a hard pull on your credit report. And that hard pull, what that does, that is basically a company, a creditor or what have you. They're actually hitting one of the credit bureaus, one or more of the credit bureaus. That's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. And they're hitting those credit reports to do a formal inquiry on your credit. And what that does, that affects your FICO score. Everybody heard about FICO? Not FICA, that man that takes money out your check. It's FICO. It's the Fair Isaac company. And what they do is they basically have programs and analytics that compute how much of a risk a consumer is going to be, right? So anytime anybody does a hard pull to your credit, what that does is that typically lowers that score, because they feel like if you're looking for credit, you may be a credit risk. And so I think somebody specifically had a question, it might have been you, Harold, about when you're shopping and you have multiple people pulling your credit. All right, well, the standard rule, the way what they call the algorithm for FICO works, is what they do is they know that if you are shopping for a home loan or any type of loan, you're shopping around, right? And so they expect that you're not just going to have one person pulling your credit. They expect that you're going to have, because you're going to shop around for the best rate, the best terms, and all that good stuff. So they basically give you 45-day windows, like a 45-day window, in order to shop around. So you can go to one, ABC lender, XYZ lender, and see which one of those gives you the best rate. And then you can choose that person. And then what happens is all of that is calculated to basically count as one inquiry on your report instead of like 4 or 5. Now you may see that if you pull your report, you can go to free, I think it's annualcreditreport.com, and you can pull all three bureaus, and if you'll see those on there. But as far as your score is concerned, it'll only count as one inquiry, right? That confuses a lot of people, because some people, they'll go out and say, well, I thought if I did, my shopping around, within 45 days, it'll just show up as one. It'll show up as multiple inquiries, and they come off in 2 years. But as far as your score is concerned, you only get hit for one. That makes sense? All right. A lot of people get confused about that. I got confused. Yes, sir. Okay, yeah, soft hit. Hard hit is a formal inquiry to the credit bureaus. Like I said, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. A soft hit is where they don't use, matter of fact, when you do a hard pull, they're always going to ask for your what? Social Security number, right? But when you do a soft pull, many a times they're not going to ask for the entire Social Security number. They may just ask for your last 4 digits of your Social Security number. And some of them don't even do that, because what they do is all of your information, such as your name, full name, your address, the places of employment that you had, all the information that is about you that is not your personal identification number, which is your Social Security number, they use that to create, a profile for this person and look at and go to the bureaus and say, okay, give me the information based on the information that I have identifying this person, which is not the Social Security number, right? And so that's how a soft pull is done. And you guys ever received like credit card offers in the mail, from like Chase, whoever, some of these, other cards? Many of those, they say, what's the magic word? You're pre-approved, right? Those aren't done with hard credit checks. Those are done with soft pulls. And anytime you've done anything like, you've done anything that hits the public record, like signing up for a fishing license, or, I think, once you hit 55, I think you get automatically enrolled to where you get opted in to some of these, where they start sending you credit card offers. And you can also opt in yourself if you want to start getting those credit cards. But they do soft pulls, and you have a better chance of getting those cards if they can already pre-approve you. You can get on the phone, talk to somebody, and start getting those cards. So yeah, that's the difference between a soft and a hard. So a soft pull, typically they don't use your social security number. Hard pull, they actually use your social security number and do a hard inquiry to the credit bureaus. And so, so how can you compete with hedge funds? All the questions come from over here, Brother Harold. So the hedge funds, you're talking about those big companies that's buying up properties? Yeah, they're doing that. Many of these companies, they are backed by investors or people with a lot of money. So I know that a few years ago, like there's one big old hedge fund, $1 billion hedge fund, they bought up a ton of properties in Gastonia. I don't know if y'all remember that. And they actually went, and I'm not sure if they started doing rehabs or if they were selling them off. But what they do is typically they come in all cash, and they buy these properties many times not at a discount. Some of them either pay what the customer is asking or the seller is asking, or they pay more than what the seller is asking because they know the property is going to appreciate in a few years. And that's tough to compete with when you are a single individual couple trying to buy a house. But one thing that you can do is, especially if you have a house, especially if it has equity and you have a house, if you don't have the amount of money in your, let's say, your retirement 401k that you could probably use, and when you sell, let's say if you decide to use that for a purchase, if you have enough, and then you sell your house and then you get those proceeds put back in your 401k. If you don't have that, the best option, as Sister Rosin said, is to sell your house, right? Because that gives you that liquid cash. And the reason it used to be, it depends on what type of market you're in. Just like Sister Rosin said, we're in a seller's market, which means the seller has control, which means most of the time in this market, they're going to get not only what they're asking for, but what? More than what they're asking for. I think they're getting now sometimes what 10, 15, 20% more than what they're even asking for. Why? Because there's several people that are bidding, and sometimes it's these big companies that are doing that. So if there's a house that you really want, it may take some thinking outside the box, and these might be some things that your realtor may not necessarily agree with. But if sometimes what you can do is you can go out, drive the neighborhoods and what in the neighborhoods that you want. If you see a house that you want, there are ways that you can get in touch with that seller and talk to them, and maybe even strike up a deal that is off market, right? And people are doing that. It's not illegal. People are doing that. But in all honesty, another of your questions, in order to be able to avoid a lot of the scams and stuff, it's better to have a licensed professional represent you. Did I fix it? Okay, cool. It's better to have a licensed professional represent you because they know a lot of the ins and outs. And I've heard stories of people actually, and this is terrible, calling for somebody, one of these companies, spam, they prey on the elderly, right? So, these elderly folks, many of them have their house paid for. And so what they'll do is they'll call, talk to, Miss Johnson. She lives by herself. She's, 80 years old, but she's in a, good frame of mind. And they convince her not only to sell her house, but convince her to sign a power of attorney. And once that happens, it's pretty much over at that point. And they can take all her possessions. They can have her committed to an institution or whatever. And so that's why we have to educate our elderly because, as times change, even like, people like us, we think we're up on the times, we're hip, we know what's going on, but things change so drastically with schemes and scams and technology. You could be taken advantage of before you even know it. So it's very important to make sure that we educate, like Pastor over here said, if it comes up spam, if it comes up no ID, no caller ID, let it roll to voicemail. Hear what they're talking about. If it sounds like something's legit, then you can follow through, check them out, do your due diligence. where you actually go and look them up on Better Business Bureau, where you go and look them up with the Secretary of State if they're an LLC, and you do your research, because if you don't, then you could be in a situation where you could be taken advantage of. Yes, sir. Yep, exactly. Sometimes if people are pressuring you, that's not a good sign. They want you to act quick. It's your money. You got the upper hand, or it's your house. So, or whatever whatever they're looking to get. So always take the time to pause and ask before you do something like that. So those are all the questions that I had, that I felt that I needed to answer in regards to that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the credit. I do think credit is very important, because a lot of people don't really understand credit. That's not exactly what my presentation was about. As a matter of fact, when Roz said that I was going to be talking about credit, I didn't have anything about credit in my presentation. So I was back there. I put a credit slide in there just to have it to reference. So, but we're here to talk about real estate investing. And I think I might have jumped from your question. So we did obviously talk about the home buyers, but I think your question is good, especially if you're young. If you're a young person and you're looking to build wealth, I think a lot of people who, well, I'll speak for myself, right? So my parents and my grandparents, right? So one of the things my grandparents told my parents and told me when my parents were coming up and I was coming up, is in order to be successful in life, you need to do what? Get an education, right? That conversation is different from some people where, they're constantly being told to buy real estate, invest in the stock market, own companies, blah, blah, blah. It's not that my parents, my grandparents, didn't want to share that information. Is because that's what they knew. That's what they were exposed to, right? So being able to invest in real estate, if you look at many of the people that have, built generational wealth, I think the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, many of the Rothschilds and all many of these individuals, they had successful businesses, but they also invested in real estate. So what we need to do is understand that real estate is a great way to build wealth, because when you're talking about land, there's not any more being made. All the land here is what's available, right? So I'm getting back to Ms. Lil's question. So her question, I think I answered your question. I just want to add something to it. It's a great way to get into real estate investing is something called house hacking. Anybody ever heard of that? House hacking? Basically, is when you buy a house, or in some cases a duplex. If you're single, you can do this with a house. But some people, what they do is, like, let's say for example, you have a kid that's getting ready to go to college. Instead of putting them up in a dorm, you put them up in a house, right? But then you have two of their friends come live in the house with them, and they pay, let's say, $500 a month. If that house has a mortgage, let's say the mortgage is $800, then that your kid now that you bought that house for now has $200 a month to go in their pocket. And then they can, in turn, once they're ready to move on, if they decide they want to sell that house, they can sell that house, take the proceeds, get into another house, and they can even do it again. If they don't have a family or anything, they can buy a bigger house. They can have people come in, rent rooms in the house, and they can make a lot of money, continue their studies if they want, or just continue down that path. But that house hacking plan is a great way in order to be able to not only build wealth but build income, for individuals. You can do that really at any age. It's just, when you think about building wealth, it's great when you can start early. I have a friend of mine, and every time I look at him and talk to him, I just shake my head. This guy's 27 years old. He's been investing for 2 years, and he just closed on an apartment complex. And I talked to this guy, and I'm like, he is married. They have no kids. His wife is helping him, and he's just recently went into real estate investing full time. So that's all he does now is he buys homes, he fixes them up, and he sells them for profit. And his apartment complex doing the same thing. He bought that apartment complex. He did some work, and then he is holding it for a couple of years, and eventually he's going to sell it. So this presentation, just to let you know, and I know everybody here may not necessarily be interested in real estate investing, but hopefully it's something where you can take a nugget and give to somebody else, because they'll be able to share it and maybe even possibly use it. So I do have some disclaimers up here. Number one, this is going to be a lot of information. So hopefully, the thing is, I hope this generates more questions than it solves for you. Because what happens, if it's generating questions, that means that you'll be able to kind of go in and dig, or you'll be able to ask either myself, Sister Roz, about additional information regarding it. So don't be disappointed if it seems a little overwhelming. Hopefully it gets to the point, we have the internet, you have access to us, so you can ask if you have questions. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving legal advice. I can give you some ideas that I know work, and then you can speak with your attorney, obviously, when you want to do it. I'm not an accountant, so anything regarding your taxes. However, I will tell you that owning real estate is a great tax shelter. So if you're looking to be able to shelter some money from Uncle Sam, having real estate will help you to do that. Also, I'm trying to read here. I'm not a loan officer, right? So just I was talking about the different loan programs. We know about general loan programs that are out there, but to know specifics, you want to talk to a loan officer. And I think Sister Rollins, she had a good one. So if you need to speak with one, definitely see her. I am a real estate agent, real estate professional, and so is Sister Roslyn. So I can consult on real estate matters in both South and North Carolina, as well as Sister Roslyn. So just wanted to keep that in mind. Use these professionals in order to be able to go to the fine tune any activities that you want to do, especially in the cases where you got people calling you. If people are calling you about, oh, I want to, even if they give you an offer or a piece of paper, even if you don't have an attorney, always say, okay, let me look over this, and I want to speak with my attorney. See how they react. If they start hemming and hawing and stuttering, okay, you don't want to deal with it, right? So definitely keep that in mind. Next slide. I don't even know if I want to go through this. So just a little bit about me. We can go quick. I'm an IT professional, for 20 years. Also a licensed agent. Also, I have two companies. One where I do my real estate purchases, Bright Star Property Group. And then I started out doing more wholesaling in the beginning, but now I kind of switched. I'm just doing buy and hold because I want to leave something for my kids, my family, hopefully at some point. And hopefully I'll, maybe even be able to pay for the funeral, when it happens. So you have a little money. So we'll see. That's supposed to be a joke. Okay. Anyway. And I'm also, I just started a consulting business in business credit because, one thing when you're actually looking to buy, create a business, a lot of people, when they create a business, they create it and you start off using your personal, credit, your personal assets and things of that sort. And, that's fine to an extent, but, if, as your business grows, what happens is, it starts to affect your personal credit and your personal debt to income, right? So if you need to buy equipment and stuff, instead of doing it in your personal name, do it in your business name against your business EIN, because, as you get older and start your business, you may decide you want to buy a new house. But if you go to a lender and the lender sees you have all this equipment, everything tied to your personal, it may hinder you from being able to buy a new house. But if you do it on your business profile, then you'll have a better chance of doing it. And it doesn't affect your personal, so there's no hard pull or soft pull on your personal credit. And so that's a whole nother presentation. If anybody's interested, definitely let us know. And I don't think Sister Rosalind or Sister Dawn, we never set up any type of feedback. But if you guys have the ability, maybe either send a text or something, send a message or Facebook, just give us some feedback of what you'd like to hear and see from these meetings, so we can we can definitely serve you on that. So and then also I'm a musician as well, so that probably helps keep me sane and all the things that I'm doing. You can go past that, Sister Rob. Brother Rob. Okay, so this is the slide that I added based on Sister Rosalind throwing me in there. So credit, one of the big things I just want to get across to you that people don't know is your credit score is made up of 5 things, 5 primary things, and they're weighted differently, right? The biggest thing is the payment history, right? So that makes up 35% of your score. So from a personal side. So if you want to, one of the best ways to increase your score in the long run is to pay your bills on time, right? And things happen, things happen to me. I hadn't always had decent credit. I lost my job in COVID. I had to work some things out. Thank God for the government in many cases. But things happen to people. But one of the best ways to keep your credit going for a long time is always pay your bills on time whenever you can. And if you have a situation where you can't for some reason, call your lenders. Don't be afraid to speak to them. Many of them can help you out. It's a law that they can't report you to credit bureaus unless you're 31 days late, right? So if you got 30 days in order to be able to make your payments, as long as you make them within that 30-day window, you should be good. But that 35% is easy if you can pay your bills on time. If you got too many things going on, try to figure out something to cut, and then try to make sure you pay your bills on time. So that's a big way. The next one is the level of debt. So if you have credit cards or things like that, the amount of balance that you keep on those credit cards, and there's a whole nother thing that I could go into with this, but that amount of debt, you want to keep that below 20% if you can. Some people say 30%. So if you have a credit card for $1,000, you always want to make sure from month to month, you can continue to use it. You can use it. But before the due date on that credit card bill, make sure that credit card is paid down to 20% or $200, because that'll make sure that you always have a utilization that's below 30% or below 20%, and then that gives you the full value of that 30%. So if you're paying your bills on time and you're not maxing out your credit cards every month, that gives you a whole 65% of your credit score. Then the next one is the age of credit. All right, I got messed up, sorta, kinda. Any of you guys ever heard of Dave Ramsey? Dave Ramsey? Well, Dave Ramsey is proprietor of Financial Peace. He has great information about how to get out of debt, and I think if that's your goal, it's great. The problem is we live in a debt society. Our whole society is built off of debt. Looking at the home buying process, buying a car, and we have this whole FICO score that basically is a measurement of how risky you are as a borrower. The problem with the financial piece, and again, I like the concept, but I remember when my wife and I started Financial Peace, one of the things that Dave Ramsey tells you to do is to do what? Cut up your credit cards, right? Now, the problem with that is if you do that and you don't have credit cards, what happens to your credit score? You lose 30% of it, right? Which is a problem. But there is an other side, and you just kind of have to decide where you want to live. I remember when me and my wife, we went to get counseling. This was like 2002, 2003. And we got financial counseling, and we met with this couple. They had a huge house, big house. And we walked in, and they were asking us questions about what we were trying to do, blah, blah, blah. And we were like, yeah, we were looking to buy a house, and we live in an apartment. One of the things that they say, but I think I made a comment, but yeah, you have to have good credit in order to get an apartment. And the husband looked at me and he said, oh, we have terrible credit. And then so I'm looking at my wife like, they got terrible credit. but we here to get financial peace. And so, so the woman looked at her husband and then looked at us. She said, "Oh yeah, we can't even rent an apartment." And I'm like, "Whoa!" And then the next thing she said to me was so powerful. She said, "Yeah, we can't rent an apartment. We can buy the apartment building, but we can't rent an apartment." And I said, "Wow." So they are in a position where they had no debt, but they were multimillionaires, and they were able to purchase an apartment building, but they just could not rent the apartment due to our system of credit, right? So that's one of the things that you have to decide for yourself. I still think Dave Ramsey is his program's good, especially as it relates to getting down your debt with the baby steps and whatnot. But if you want to be able to operate and do things and utilize other people's money in the credit game, then you have to at least keep one credit card. And so when you look at the age of your credit, which makes up 15%, so when we cut all of our credit cards up, that basically reset our age on a lot of our credit cards that we had, which could have been up to 20 years. We ended up losing some of that. But obviously your installment and stuff like that you have for your car, your house, that helps as well. Then 10% makes up the types of credit, like the mix, which installment loans, credit card loans, and then other various things that you have for your credit. And then the final 10% is inquiries, like how many inquiries you have. Typically, you want to make sure that you have 5 or less inquiries. The less, the better, like within the 12-month period. But if you have more than that, then that shows lenders that you are hungry for credit and you might be a credit risk. Yes, sir. Well, it depends. If you paid off everything, that would not be a good thing according to your FICO score, right? And again, the whole point of having a FICO score is to show lenders that you are responsible with money, so that they can give you money. So let's say if you're wanting to buy a new house, but you don't have the cash to do that, you may have to utilize a lender's money or proceeds in order to be able to do that. But if you pay off everything, that will hurt your mix of credit. That'll hurt your, and that when you say everything, I'm assuming like everything, like right. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Right. So I would say it's good. It's good, but you should leave one thing of each type on there. One credit card, leave that on there. Keep it on there. If you want to keep your FICO score up. One installment loan, one mortgage, if you can, keep that on there. Or at least have that history. If you just paid off your mortgage, at least have that history. And then be able to show that you have that Apple history in order to be able to let those lenders know that you're responsible. If you have a bunch of stuff like, frivolous, stuff like little credit cards or collections, even if it's anything, I think it's below $100, you should probably go ahead and pay that. Anything more than that with collections, you have differences of opinion where they say it's not good to pay, you should dispute. Well, if it's false information, you should definitely dispute it. Go to the credit bureau, dispute it. But if it's true, then what you should probably do is try to go ahead and pay it, because it's better to have it show as paid in full or settled than not paid at all. And that's because of the new FICO algorithms that are out. You guys ever heard of anybody that's done anything, and they give you these papers saying that, your Fair Credit Reporting Act, they have a FICO 4, FICO 5, FICO 6, FICO 8, those are different ones. With these later FICO versions that come out every so many years, they are actually counting the paid and settled less than unpaid, right? Because some people out there will say, oh, never pay. You go on YouTube, they'll say never pay collections. Never pay collections. Pay me $500 and I'll get those collections off for you. But you can do that yourself for free, right? All you have to do is just go to Experience, set up an account, go to TransUnion, set up an account. You can do it for free. We'll do a whole nother workshop. You know, that's a process that you can go through. Yes, sir. Yep. That's sign up, create an online account, you know, username, password. They'll ask you some other information, right? And then they'll allow you to view the credit report that they have for you. And then once you view that, they'll also give you the ability to go and dispute anything on that credit report. So if you have old addresses or anything like that, you can actually go in and dispute those. If you have accounts that you know that you didn't open, you can go in and dispute those, right? And that's what you should do anyway. Go and look at your report. Yes. Oh, that's all. Because you're actually, it'll technically be a soft, right? But you're actually logging into the credit bureau. You're going to their website, like you're going to Equifax website, and you're signing up for an account, and then they're showing you the information that they have. So I mean, it's really not a pull per se, but it's, you know, you can equate it to, it's not it's not going to affect your credit report. Yeah, but that's a good question. So yeah, so that's the main thing. You want to be able to know exactly what's on your credit report. And if you do decide, like say, if you want to take Dave Ramsey, pay off some stuff, leave one of each thing if you can. That way it keeps your credit report high. And we talked about inquiries. Inquiries only makes up 10%. So, you know, if you get an inquiries on your credit report, you know, I've seen some people that have 80 inquiries on their credit report, and that's typically not a good thing. A lender would it's like a red flag, you know. But if you're shopping around doing stuff for a house, for a car, yeah, you may have multiple, but it's how many inquiries you have within a 12-month period, right? Just don't go crazy. Usually people that have a 850 credit score, they either have 0 or 1 inquiry within a 12-month window, right? So just keep that in mind. Again, we'll probably have another session where we do a deep dive. Just to let you know, I'm not a personal or what they call consumer credit counselor. I do know a lot about it just because I went through it myself. But my passion is on the business side. But I can definitely get you started on that process if you want to build your personal credit to a point where you can, you know, do more things, because things get more expensive the lower your credit is. You guys believe that? Money costs more the lower your credit score is, because you pay more in interest rate, you pay more in down payment, you know. But if you have great credit, you know, I got a friend of mine, he you know, started making money, you know, in his business. And before, you know, he was like, anytime anybody was, you know, trying to, or he would try to apply for credit, he would get denied. But once he started making money in his business, and he kept his scores up, every time he walked into Bank of America, you know, before he can tell them what he wants, they're asking him, hey, can we loan you $10,000? Can we loan you $20,000? You know, because he kept his credit score up, right? So money starts chasing you once your credit score gets to a certain point. All right, so that's the credit piece. Robert, can you move now? I want to talk about real estate investing, right? So real estate investing, basically, and I can't read none of that. I see how these pastors feel when they get up, or these preachers. I can't read none of that, but I'm gonna try. So real estate investing is acquiring real property in order to be able to get an increase in your money, right? So you're buying a house, you want to either get 3 things, right? You want to be able to flip that property for some sort of capital gain or money, right? You want to get, you know, some money. So you buy a house, you fix it up, and then you sell it for a higher price. So you buy low, fix up, sell for a higher price, or you make money in appreciation. So in 2000, maybe the house was worth $150,000, but then in 2021, it's probably worth $350,000. right? So you make money that way. Also, cash flow. You can invest and be able to get cash flow. I have a property in Columbia now. I get $400 a month on, cash flow. And my idea is to be able to buy more of those types of properties so that I can be able to hopefully leave some, to my kids. I know Pastor has a huge vision in order to be able to do that specifically, to be able to, obviously for his family, but for the organization as well. So that's what real estate investing gives you. Next slide. Did I lose my guy? It fell off on the job. But so definitely real. There he is. You fired. Yes, question. Yes. Yeah, because if you guys remember, so the question is, when I mentioned leaving one type of loan on your credit, one of each type, you can make a decision. If you want to be able to utilize your credit to do things in the future, then it's best to at least leave one type. So let's say if you pay off your mortgage, maybe that's not too bad, but you could probably co-sign on your kids' first mortgage or whatever. You don't necessarily have to do that. It's just up to you if you want to do that. Keeping an auto loan, probably the biggest thing you could do is make sure you keep a good credit card. At least one good credit card, keep the balance low. That makes up 30%. If you pay your bills on time, that makes up 35%. That's 65%. If you remember from that graph, the types of credit that you have only makes up 10%. So if you want to pay off everything, that's fine. If you have one of each type of loan on there, it will give you some additional of that 10%. But a lot of people, they don't care. They want to just pay off, everything. But it's probably best to at least leave a credit card on your credit, just because it makes up 30% of your credit score. So not only that, but have that credit card, keep it for a while, so that it builds up age. That answer the question? Yeah. Yes. Yep. The medical payments, though, that's haunting. The medical payments. What's the big reason why we get people get like medical collections and stuff like that? Is because of the whole insurance game. That's a whole nother thing, right? You go to the doctor and you expect, and I know we're kind of drifting off, but that's fine. This is good. But you go to the doctor, you have insurance through your job. You get seen, and they tell you have a $40 copay. From that, when you pay your $40 copay, in your mind, everything is good, right? 2 weeks later, you get something in the mail from Cigna or Blue Cross Blue Shield or wherever, showing you, everything. And the first thing, this is not a bill, but they show you everything that they paid and then what you owe, right? And this is what you owe to the doctor's office. And you're like, but I got insurance. Why am I having to pay this? And then, so sometimes, you get those bills, and what do? Throw them in the trash. Then the next thing you know, 4 months later, you pull up your credit report and you got credit. And it's a big insult. A big insult when you go to apply for a car and they say, oh, you got some collections on there. And you're like, really? And the collections are like $35, $10, $52. Stuff that you could have just paid out your pocket, but now that's on your credit report. So, but even before that point, like medical bills, things like that, those don't hit your credit report until they become a problem, until they go to collections, and then they're reported on your credit report. So with those things, if they're small like that, anything under $100, I would say just call the people, knock them out, pay them, be done with it, because they'll make a difference when they come off your credit report. Anything above that, like people have to go to the doctor, there's a dispute with the insurance company, try to work that out, because a lot of times things get miscoded in the doctor's office, and you won't realize it until you actually go and say, hey, I had this procedure done. Why isn't it covered by my insurance company? And you have to be actively involved with your insurance company and the doctor's office. There's been so many cases where people got stuck with bills that they shouldn't have, only because somebody coded it wrong, right? So keep that in mind, with that. But typically, the medical bills and student loans, they do show up on your credit report. And of course, student loans, as of right now, they're not going anywhere unless Biden does something about it. We'll see. Antonio's shaking his head, but we don't know. Probably not. So it's best to call up your student loan, and if you're in a situation where you can't pay, just do a forbearance and talk to them, let them know what you can pay, and then go from there. But as of right now, student loans aren't going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. Especially that adds to that 35%, right? So if they can see that you've been paying on something and you show good history, the more of those you have, the better, the higher that 35% that you get. Yes. Oh yeah. So you're talking about the collection company? Yeah. Because what happens is the way things go to collections um, is these companies. Let's say if it's let's say it's Verizon for what. So Verizon, you have a service with them. You hadn't paid your bill. Let's say you owe them $500, and you hadn't paid them in 4 months. They will charge off the account. When they charge off the account, they'll sell that account. They basically take it off their books. They'll sell that account for pennies on the dollar to ABC Collection Company, right? And at that point, that debt is pretty much, wiped out, I guess, as far as Verizon is concerned. But ABC Collection Company, they can make money, right? If they get anything above what they paid for, I mean, like, what they paid for that debt, let's say for the $500, they only paid, $40. If they get anything above $40, they won, right? So that's why a lot of people say, don't pay collections, because many times there's a trick to collections. Like this turned into a whole nother thing, but that's cool. There's a trick to collections because sometimes, and this was big back in the, when the financial collapse. Anybody remember 2008, 2009, 2007? Like companies like, there's a mortgage company called Countrywide. And so they collapsed during the recession. But what they found that happened was Countrywide took a lot of their mortgages and they sold it to different people, right? And then they continued, they kind of went to a chain. So it came to a point where people were looking like, okay, well, I need to dispute this, or I need to get this off my credit. So what they were doing is saying, you have the right to know who the original creditor was on any loan that you have, right? And so after it's gone down like 4 or 5 levels to people that purchased it, you say, okay, all right, well, I just need more information. I need to know who the original creditor was. And so what they're doing is, okay, Mr. Brantley, we're gonna find this out because you're gonna pay us. And we don't know that information. Well, that's tough, because if you can't tell me who the original creditor is, then it's not my debt. And so that's how a lot of people were able to get out of their Countrywide, and even in other situations. And that's one of the things that even they tell you about collections, because they're selling these collections. They always ask you to be able to verify who the original creditor is, because that is a way, if you wanted to dispute something, again, you can do all this stuff for free yourself. You can dispute and say, I did not open up an account with ABC Collections. I don't know who these people are. And you're telling the truth because you don't. And I need this removed from my credit report. And then they say, well, yeah, it looks like, they can't tell us who the original creditor is, so it looks like, yeah, this is not valid, so we're going to remove it. And so that's one little trick to be able to get something like that off your credit report. But again, you can do all this stuff yourself for free. That answer your question? Yeah. Yeah, I would say anything under $100. You know, I would say have them verify who the original creditor is, and then you could take care. I know sometimes a lot of these creditors, doctor's office, they'll have their own collection company too. Or you could call them directly and then have them verify who they sent the collection to, and then you could take care of it then, because it's either the collection company or the creditor that's going to have to put the remarks on your credit report that says either settled or paid in full. So, but if you have a question about, whoever it is, then you can call the original creditor and they should be able to tell you at least who they sent it to. Now, if it's going to multiple people since then or multiple companies, you may have a good chance of getting it removed from your credit report. And I will say this, I'll put it out there. I wasn't going to go into all this. This again, it's another workshop. But utilize when somebody calls you and it says spam, don't answer, okay? Because what a lot of these companies are trying to do, even if it's gone to different hops like that, what they want to do, you ever heard when they say, they try to get it out fast, hey, Michelle, how you doing? This is about, and they try to act like they're your friend. Just want to let you know this call is being recorded for quality and reporting purposes, that type of thing. The call is being recorded. Anything you say to identify yourself, they're going to use that against you when you come to dispute. So the best thing, and what they try to do is keep you on for 30 seconds. Meaning 30 seconds, that 30-second window is enough for them to be able to use that. So when, depending on, who it is or whatever, I know when they were calling me, I called, I said, hello, because sometimes I'll answer, can I ask who's calling? As soon as they hit their little spiel, I hang up. Don't give them any information, I think one time I even told them, I said, I think I answered the phone, I said, Latron, and then they said, hi, blah, 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 blah. I said, who are you looking for? I said, I'm sorry, my name is Tyrone. And I hung up the phone. Because if they had it out on recording, they have that part too, right? So again, that's a whole nother thing. If anybody's interested, we can definitely talk more about that. But the credit situation, also just to let you guys know, with Biden in office, there's been a push for the elimination of the credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and a push to have one combined government agency, which is already in existence. It's called the CFPB, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. And I'm not sure when this is going to happen. I heard that they're going to try to really push for this next year. But eventually they're going to basically take everything, all the data from these companies, create one profile for you, and then that's going to be the profile moving forward, right? And so it's going to be like we can go in and we can dispute things and all that stuff with the credit bureaus, but then when it goes to CFPB, you can still, my understanding is you'll still be able to do that, but it may be a little harder, right? So what you want to do is make sure you try to get things in order if you can, because it's going to be able to help you not only to buy a home, but also if you want to invest in real estate. So next slide. All right, so why invest in real estate? And I'm gonna move a little quickly, but if you have questions, definitely ask. It doesn't even matter if we don't finish my whole slide, just ask questions. So you invest in real estate obviously for cash flow. We talked about building wealth, especially generational wealth for your family. There's a lot of things people don't talk about, not only real estate, but insurance policies, using like whole life insurance policies to be able to set up, family banks where people in your family can get no interest loans to do things. That's a whole nother thing that not really being taught. And also to generate capital to be able to do things. Now that a lot of people don't know, I think I touched on it earlier, you can make down payments on houses using your retirement. either your IRA, 401k, things of that sort. Obviously, you want to be able to pay that stuff back if you can, but you can do that, especially if you're looking to invest in real estate. There are people that utilize their IRA to buy properties, fix them up, sell them, put the money that they borrowed back into their IRA, and take the proceeds and do something else with it. Next slide. Types of real estate to invest in. You can invest in the residential and commercial properties, single family homes. You can invest in townhomes, condos, mobile homes, manufactured homes. Typically, mobile homes and manufactured homes don't hold their value like traditional homes. But if you take 50 of them and put them on an acre lot, you can make some money. Don't do that, but you can make a lot of money in mobile homes. A lot of people do that. Back in the day, they used to call them trailer parks. I don't know what they call them now, but probably the same thing. Trailer parks, yeah. Multifamilies like duplexes, triplexes, quads. Anybody know like a duplex? Anybody like a house? It's like a house, but it's like two separate units, two doors essentially. You could have a 3,000 square foot house, that you have a mortgage on, which is like let's say the mortgage on that house is $200,000. Your payment is, let's say it's $1,200 a month, but then you have two families living in that house, and they're both paying you $1,000 a month. So you're getting $2,000 a month on that duplex, and you're only paying out $1,200. What's your cash flow? $800 a month. You keep doing that, especially if you're talking about a triplex and a duplex. That's why a lot of people like those, because it's a great way to build a cash flow. And then, of course, commercial. You have apartment buildings. Anything over 4 units, like 5 or plus, is considered commercial. And then you have, what does that say? Retail, office space, and then, of course, gas stations and things like that. A lot of people are using that in order to be able to generate wealth in real estate. Next. Yes. Oh, say that one time. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's a great point. Glad you brought that up. So yeah, anytime you want to get into real estate investing, just like I had in my disclaimer, you kind of want to have a team of people with you, right? So now, you don't have to be people that you meet with every day, but have an accountant that you built a relationship with, have a good relationship. Even if somebody that's done your taxes for a while, have a good accountant you can talk to, because they can structure things and set things up so that it reduces your taxable income, right? Real estate is considered a tax shelter, which means you can use it to offset your personal income, right? I mean, the whole point, especially like with billionaires, we always talk about them paying their fair share, but how do you think they became billionaires? By not paying taxes. And so they have all this real estate because it shields the money that they're making. So having a good tax professional in your circle, having a good attorney in your circle, somebody that can help look over these contracts that people try to send you and say, hey, we need to do it today. Okay, well, let me call my attorney, blah, blah, blah. Right? And then you're click. And obviously, having a good real estate agent, right? Somebody that can help you, especially when you talk about real estate. You want to make sure that you have those people in your circle. So that's a good point. Glad you brought that up. And so types of real estate to invest in, also short-term rentals. You're talking about cash flow. People are making money with Airbnb, HomeAway. That's just another site like Airbnb. VRBO, again, another site. I think it's like vacation rental by owner or something like that. That's what it stands for. Timeshares. I got sucked into a timeshare once. Man, that was terrible. But I got rid of it. But there are people out there that can help you get rid of timeshares too, if you've gotten sucked into them. But that's another example. If you do them right, you know what you're doing, you can make some money, but it's hard. And then of course vacation homes. Some people just buy vacation homes, and then while they're not staying in them, they'll go ahead and rent those out. Then there's what is that? Oh, institutional. Yeah. Okay. So investment vehicles. So if you don't want to deal with anything with real estate, but you want to be able to get the returns, you can do what's called a Reit, which is a real estate investment trust, where you basically put into a pool, however much money you got, and you can get a return on your money. I think, anywhere from 15, 18%, I think they're giving on some of these REITs. It depends on the REIT, but that's one way in order to be able to invest in real estate. And then partnerships and co-ops, again, that's another thing. It's mostly on a smaller scale. So you remember, where'd Brother Harold go? Oh, okay. But you can tell him this. He was asking that question about these big companies that are coming and buying up properties and stuff like that. That's the first bullet. That's the REITs. A lot of these REITs, they've collected billions of dollars from people that just don't want to deal with real estate, but they want to get the returns. And so what they do, these REITs, they go out and they buy real estate. And you could even think of Zillow. Zillow, I think it was Zillow Offers, where you can actually go, what was the other big one? They were buying property. I know Keller Williams has Keller Offers. What was the other big one? OfferPad. Yeah. Open Door. That's the one I was thinking about. Open Door. They go and they basically, they collect money from people, investors, and then they go in cities and they buy up properties. And so, but they have billions of dollars, so they can go ahead and they can pay over listing price or over asking price for these properties because they got so much of it. Next slide. Yes. No, you can. Probably the best way. I knew one. What's the name of that? But you can go online and you can just like search Google for REITs. There are some that are better than others, so you kind of have to do your due diligence and look at some of them, see where they invest, the types of properties they invest. Because you got some REITs that only invest in commercial property, some REITs that invest in residential property, some REITs that only invest in apartment homes, stuff like that. So probably the best way is just to go and Google REITs, and it'll give you more information about which ones. But there's so many of them, out there. Some are bigger than others, and when they get smaller, it could be a situation where, I was talking about partnerships or co-ops. That's when you may have, let's say you, me, Cortland, First Lady, we'll get what's your name? Abigail. So we get together and we put our money together and we go out and buy properties like that. We may not be able to buy as much, but we can buy properties. So you could do it on a smaller scale, or you can get involved in the REITs in order to do that. To answer your question? Cool. So strategies to invest. Obviously, you'll be able to wholesale, and what that is, that's just buying low and selling low. So you go and drive through the neighborhood and you see a vacant property with the grass overgrown. You may see no curtains, no shades, blinds in the windows. You may see a car in the lot on blocks. Notice nobody's ever been there. Overgrown shrubs. That the property is probably vacant. So you can go and you can actually find out who owns that property and send them a letter, make them a phone call, and see if they want to sell that property. A lot of people are doing that. I think a lot of people that aren't qualified are doing that. And there's a big push. I think the state of Illinois has banned wholesaling without a license, and all that's being pushed by the NRA. I think Philadelphia has already done something. There's been a lot of fight in North Carolina, in Raleigh for years, but then a lot of investors actually go to the Capitol. They lobby against it. But the National Association of Realtors is pushing that because they don't want people out there, trying to take advantage of people, into real estate. So, but there are a lot of good wholesalers out there, people that know what they're doing, know what they're talking about. There are a lot of licensed real estate agents that wholesale too. So that's even better. The house I bought in Columbia, the guy told me, when we're going into contract, because by law, as a licensed agent, anytime I go or Rosalind goes under contract to buy a property, we have to do what? On the top of the contract, in bold capital letters, we have to disclose that we're a licensed agent so that they know that, we are buying this for ourselves and therefore. But the guy told me, he's like, I've gotten hundreds of calls, on this property because it was vacant for like 3 years. He said, it's because you disclosed that you're a licensed agent that I decided I wanted to work with you. And so I was like, well, thank you. I appreciate that, and worked it out. And I've been, with him for a year. I'm doing an owner finance deal with him, and it's all working out. I got a good tenant in there, pays me on time every month. I get my cash flow, keeping it moving. There's also hoteling. When you buy low, you fix it up, like not like a full rehab, but you just clean up, mop and bucket, stuff like that, and then you put it on the market. You sell at a higher price, maybe not full retail, but you sell at a little bit higher price, and then you get money that way. Then you have fix and flips or full rehab. That's when you buy a property, maybe a haunted house, right? And you go and you put some money in it, and you fix it up, and you make it look, real good. And you can go and put it on the market, and you get money. So you may, $100,000 house, that you bought, but you calculated the after repair value as, let's say, 400. You put 100,000 in it, so now you got 200,000 into that property. You sell it on the market for 400. You come off with 200, and you can do it again, rinse and repeat. Also, lease option. That's what you can do, and you can get into a property. In some cases with no money, depending on how you do it. But you can lease a property from someone that's looking to sell, and then have an option to buy that house in a future time. So you actually go and you do that, and over a period of time, if you decide you want to buy it, you can exercise your option. That means the owner can't sell the property out in front of you until you exercise your option. Then you have what was that? What's that next one? Short term. Okay, yeah. So you can do a short term rental on it, like Airbnb, and then also subject to. That's one that's not really talked about much, but it's out there. And all that is when if you have a mortgage on a property, but let's say it's too much for you, and because you already bought another house or you have another house and you don't want to pay both of those mortgages, there's something called a subject to. Maybe you haven't fallen behind. You're struggling to keep both of those payments. You can actually go into an agreement where someone else can take over the payments for you, but beware of those types of things, because there's a lot of folks. Oh, thank you. There's a lot of folks that take advantage of people on that. But I've heard some great success stories too. One way people will do that, they'll actually buy a property subject to, meaning they don't put, they don't buy the property outright, but they'll buy it subject to, make the mortgage payments, and then they will do the rehab, fix up, and then they'll sell it 6 months later, 9 months later. Then they'll buy the property, satisfy the mortgage, and then move on. But you just have to, be very aware and do your due diligence on that. Yep. If you really want to do a subject to, it's better not to. Because here's the thing, this is what a lot of people bet on. In the contract, as you already know, there's something in the contract, not the contract for the house, but the mortgage. There's something called the due on sale clause. All that means is anytime the title of that property changes. So with a subject to, that the person that's going to take over the payments, you're actually deeding that property to that person. So you may ask, why would anybody ever do that? Some people, they have their reasons. They don't want to pay the mortgage, but they can deed that property over to the person that's paying the mortgage. If the mortgage company finds out that deed has changed hands, they have the right to exercise that due on sale. And what that means is they'll accelerate the loan and make everything come due now, today. What a lot of people bank on, and what has happened over the years, is if somebody takes over that mortgage, regardless of whether it's deeded or not, if the bank sees that, if they find out, let's say 5 months later, 6 months later, and the bank sees that the mortgage is being paid on time, the banks are not in in the business of holding properties. They're not in the business of foreclosing on property. They're in the business of making money. So if they see that that payment has been made over the last 6, 9, 8 months, whenever they find, if they find out, many of them don't, then they might just take that piece of paper and show, okay, next case, because it's a detriment for them in their books if they hold properties, because then they have to go through all of the foreclosure process, which costs money. You got to pay attorney fees. You got to hire a real estate agent. All that stuff. If somebody's paying their mortgage payment, they may not care. Some, depending on who they are, but it's been rare cases. I've talked to hundreds of investors that said they've done that, and that's never happened. So that's why it's so popular. But again, as an owner, a seller, you have to do your due diligence. And then there's the BRRRR strategy, which is great if you're really looking to make a career in real estate investment. Well, not necessarily a career, you can, but you can. I'm kind of what call a slow investor, because a lot of people want to do it and they want to do it full time, but I actually like my job. I'm probably one of the few people that like their day job, and so I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. So I'm more of a slow investor. So you buy a property, you sit on it, you sell it, you invest in more property, blah blah blah. But the BRRRR strategy is you buy, you can rehab, and once you fix it up, rehab it, then you can rent that property out to somebody, start collecting that rent. Then you can refinance the property. So let's say you bought the house for $100,000. It needed $50,000. Let's go back to our original example. Let's say you bought the house for $100,000. It needed $100,000 worth of work. Now you got $200,000 in it, and then you go ahead and rent that out, right? And let's say, your payments on that $200,000 is $1,200. You rent it out, and now that after you fix it up, the value is $400,000. So it's double it. It's quadrupled in value almost. And so what you do is, once you get that person in renting it out, you got cash flow coming in. Then you go to the bank and say, hey, I want to refinance this. You got $400,000 worth of equity in that house. Now, obviously, some of it was your money. So you got $400,000 worth of equity. So you can actually go and put, well, when I say equity, if you got loans for that, if you didn't pay cash and you got loans for it, so you have the $400,000 minus whatever loans. Let's say all $200,000 of what you put in was a loan. You got $200,000 in equity. You can cash and refinance, cash some of that out, and be able to invest that into another property. And then what's the last step? Just repeat. Just keep doing it. A lot of people, when we're talking about house hacking, a lot of people did that. When they were coming up, they'll go and get a house. They'll live in it with, let's say, a house or a duplex. Live in one side, have somebody else paying the mortgage on the other side, and they'll go ahead and fix it up while they're living in it. Then eventually they'll sell it, and then they'll make that money, and then they'll put it into another house. And then by the time they're however 10 years down the road or whatever, they've made up upwards maybe about $1 million, several $1 million doing that. So that's a great way. And one of the reasons that I preach this is because I benefit from my parents and grandparents telling me to go to college, because there's a lot of folks that got this knowledge when they were kids, right? Because what they see their parents doing this, they see their grandparents buying all these homes, whatever. But I'm not speaking for everybody else, but like my parents, they were hardworking. They worked in the fields and stuff like that. They didn't have this knowledge about real estate investing or generating wealth or none of that stuff. So they taught what they knew. And what did they know? Go to college, get an education. And I'm thankful for that. So now I'm the product of that. Y'all are the product of that, right? So we got the education. So what do we have to do? We can expose our kids to that now. And then they look at it and they're like, oh, okay, cool. So when they're in college, they're going out and buying real estate. And I know it's happening because I got friends that, you got people that, well, not necessarily from the people I know, in their early 20s that own 2-3 houses in their early 20s, people that look like me. So I think it's definitely best if we can take this knowledge and be able to share it with our young people. Next slide. Yes. Yep. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. That's right. Yep. Definitely, you gotta make sure you know who you're dealing with. Like especially like you were saying, understand who we're dealing with, and definitely obviously take care of our seniors because many of them, they don't know. They don't know unless we tell them. I think a lot of people they tell their seniors, their mothers, fathers, grandparents, okay, you got this phone. If it says spam or no caller ID, do not pick it up. And that's what we kind of have to tell them because once they get on the phone, that's it. I remember I spoke to this one lady about a house in Fort Mill, and we're on lead generation, so it's basically just talking about how do you get leads. And we may skip this, but obviously once you find out who owns the house, then you call them up. And so the guy that owns it, he was actually living in New Jersey with his mother, who was 85 years old. And so I called to speak with this lady, and fortunately for me, I mean for her, I'm not that kind of guy. I grew up in a small town, small town vibe, that type of thing. But when I got on the phone with her, all she wanted to do was talk. So I spent what should have been a 15-minute conversation. I was on with her phone with her for an hour, listening to her talk about her grandbabies, and I didn't know this lady from, but I didn't have the heart to tell her, I'm just interested in your son's house. So that let me know a lot. For some of this stuff, I'm not cut out for, but that's just because where I grew up. But obviously in lead generation, being able to go and find out, who owns the property. And I don't think I have it on this slide, but can you go to the next slide, Robbie? Next slide. Okay, go back to. Go back. Keep going one. So one of the ways you can find out who owns a house. Let's say if you're driving in the neighborhood, and you see a house that's vacant. Then what you could do, you can go to the county GIS. I know Gaston County has a GIS system where you can find out all the information about who owns the property, where they live, all that good stuff. If you have access to the MLS, you can find that information out too. There's a bunch of other tools out there as well. And obviously, I did not pre-think the screen here when I talked about it. But there's different types. So you have vacant properties, absentee owners, county city lists, and then of course being on the market, and then driving neighborhoods like we just talked about. Those are ways you can find leads in order to be able to prospect and see who owns it. To maybe you can try to buy it. And brother Harold, that's a great way if you're hoping to be able to get something that's not being taken up by some of these big companies. If you're out and you don't necessarily have to go looking for it, or you can. Some people do it, but if you're out and you see something that's vacant that you want to invest in, just call them up. Look them up. Look up the property address with the county. Call them up and see if they're interested in selling, or send them a letter or something like that. That's something that can be done. Next slide. And I'm going through this kind of fast. Again, if you have questions, definitely stop me. I can answer. One of the things you want to be able to do from that, the GIS system, is be able to identify the parts of the house or the characteristics. Basically, the type of the house it is, the construction of the house, the bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, lot size, the garage type, two-car, three-car garage, and of course any exterior characteristics and amenities that the house has, so that all of that will be used to determine the value, so you kind of know what you're working with. All right. Next slide. And of course, being able to determine that property value, you can estimate any repairs. Many of these you can kind of look at and see, but some you may have to actually go into the property or have a contractor go into the property to estimate. But then you can also run comparables. A real estate agent will definitely be key in order to be able to do that, to help you run comparables, but you can also do it yourself. Maybe not as good, but you can kind of get a ballpark on Zillow, Redfin, or Trulia. And then also you can determine that after repair value by taking, whatever those comps come out to be, and then you can use that value to subtract repairs to determine how much you're going to pay for the property in order to be able to acquire it and sell it. Next slide. And then contacting leads. There's all kind of ways you can contact leads. We can get into that later. Next slide. Then purchasing and recording ownership that we were talking about. Your personal, buying a property in your personal name versus your business name. When I bought my property in Columbia, I bought it in my business name, which is Bright Star Property Group, LLC, because I plan to buy another house at some point, and I don't need that property showing up on my personal credit. So, that's one thing. Now, some lenders, you have to be careful. Some lenders won't allow that, but some do, especially those that offer what's called portfolio loans. They know you may be buying a bunch of properties, but just think about that. So if you're ever in the idea of buying houses or buying properties, ask your lender, hey, I want to be able to buy this property. I want to buy it in my business name, and I may want to buy. I think in the conventional lending, you can only buy up to 10 with conventional, but there are portfolio loans you can buy more. And so buying properties under your business name is definitely a way in order to be able to do that. You can set up a limited liability company or a partnership, a corporation, or S corp. And again, being able to do that, and this is my cup of tea. This is my passion. So if anybody has a business, it's my shameless plug. Anybody has a business that they're looking to start and they're wanting to get funding for it, whether it be real estate company or what have you, or Cortland's car wash, emporium, detailing. You're going to need funds in order to expand and grow your operation. We got to scale it out. So, we could talk about business funding. There's business funding for startups and things like that. So, being able to take those funds and grow your business, that's a big passion of mine. I do know a lot about the consumer side just because of me going through it personally. I'm also going through the business side. Just started on my business credit. So if you're a landscaper and you're looking to buy more equipment, a lot of times people that are in certain industries, they want to grow, but they can only get to a certain point because they got, let's say for a landscaper, you got, 2 lawnmowers, right? With those 2 lawnmowers, you may only be able to do so much business. But if you had another piece of equipment, let's say you had 2 more lawnmowers and you had funds to be able to hire 2 more cutters, then you could take those funds and use that to buy and hire people and grow your business and then continue to scale. It's about using other people's money in order to make more money. And so that's how people grow and scale on the business financing side. So that's one of my passions, and I can definitely help you out with that. Next, financing a purchase. So obviously for real estate, if you want to buy a house, you can do cash purchase. And when I say cash purchase, that means if you have the cash sitting in your bank account, by all means, use it. One of the worst things you can do in this age of inflation is keep your money in a safe deposit box. Why is that? Because your money is losing value every year, right? That $100,000 won't buy as much as it used to, 10 years ago. Even if you put it in a 3% return savings account, inflation at 4 and 5%, your money is still losing value. I was talking to Pastor a while back, putting it in a mutual fund, money market fund that may be getting you, anywhere from 8, 10, 12%. That's better because at least your money is not losing value, right? Some people go a little bit more riskier. They'll put it in, index funds, or, they'll trade the market, or they'll buy Bitcoin, take their money and run. But that's a whole nother conversation, so we won't go there. But yeah, so if you have the cash, in your IRA, retirement, go ahead and use it if you want to invest, because that's interest free. And so if you have what is that, a mortgage, so you can get a loan to get a mortgage, and be able to use that to purchase a new property, especially if you have either good business credit, good personal credit. You can get what they call hard money. and that's usually for fixed flippers, those that want to rehab properties. Those types of loans, they call them hard for a reason because they're more expensive. You're going to be paying points up front. You may pay points on the back end, and points is typically like a percentage. Like 1 point could be 1%. So just it could be very profitable using them. You just have to know what you're doing in order to make it happen. Then there's business credit, like I talked about. There are people that get 0 APR business credit cards, and they use that to put down payments on real estate. And then they'll do what they need to do, fix it up or what have you, and then they'll pay those cards back within that time frame. And it's like free money, right? So those are other ways that you can actually do it. Of course, getting lines of credit, and then being able to do specialized real estate loans are other ways. Now, many of these loans, especially for the business side, many of them don't even require what they call a personal guarantee or a hard credit guarantee or credit check for you personally. Most of the time, they will use just your business credit profile, especially if you have one established. Now, if your business credit profile is young, like if you've only been in business, let's say a year, then there's a chance for some of the higher limit loan programs, you may have to what they call personal guarantee, which means if you don't pay the money back, they can go after you personally. But some people take that risk depending on what they're doing because they know that they can make the money and do what they need to do. But as their business matures, then they'll be able to get money without using a personal guarantee. And that's the big benefit of business credit, because that way you're able to separate your personal and do the things you want to do for your family separate from your business, like buy a new house and not have the lender looking at you say, oh, it looks like you bought several houses here, you got several mortgages. No, because they won't see any of that shows up on your business credit report. So that's the best thing about establishing a business in separate business credit. Next slide. So looks like I'm at the end. Looks like, what time is it? Okay, cool. So we're making good time. We do have some time for questions, either in regards to Rosalind presentation on home ownership or real estate investing. But just to give you some resources, I have 2 websites, my 2 companies, Bright Star Property Group, which is my real estate company, and then I have Prescott Capital Solutions, which is my business credit company. There's tons of information up there. You can actually use that as a resource. There's nothing to buy, or you don't have to buy anything. You just go and just read. If you want to learn more, ask me questions. Do you know your website with Keller Williams? Well, we can get Sister Rollins. She has a website. Anything that you want to know, you can also touch base with her. So, but that's pretty much it. Real estate investing is a very, very good way to build wealth for yourself, especially regardless of what age you are, but especially if you're young, being able to get into it now and start small if you want, and build up. I think it's a great way to set yourself up, for retirement. A lot of people working, they do it because they have to now, and they would rather not. So thank you very much. We do have a question. Thank you. Oh yeah. That's what I was about to bring up. Yep. So yeah, that's a great point. I did have, especially when you look at a property card, if you look it up with the county, it'll say whoever the original owner was, maybe that was deceased, and then et al., which in Latin means and others. So they don't know who those others are. Could be siblings, could be kids, or what have you. So but we've seen a lot of situations where families break up because somebody has passed away. And that's a terrible thing, right? So that's why it's very important to have a will. If you haven't, I'm talking to my dad. It's something you don't want to talk about, but my dad is actually on it. He's actually doing his thing, but you want to make sure that you get all that stuff taken care of, so that family can go on when you've gone on. Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. Yes. Okay. So to the first point, so we do have first-time homebuyer information. I know obviously you guys heard it, but we have some folks online, especially if you're in Gastonia. We do have that information. If you're not in Gastonia, you can again see Sister Rosalind or myself. You can actually get information for a lender. I think you actually have a good lender. Yeah, so that person can give you more information about first-time homebuyer programs as well, that you can use. And as far as the subsequent sessions, this particular session we had today was on home ownership. Home ownership is, especially if you're buying a home, everybody wants a piece of that American dream. That's probably going to be one that's going to be a feature on most, if not all, of our sessions, because everybody needs to have that information, right? Investing is like, that's like icing on the cake for generational wealth. But there'll be other topics that we'll have too, like personal credit, and we'll bring in folks. We'll bring in credit counselors, and, the folks that can give you tips and other things dealing with your credit. I'll probably do a session. Also, business credit. We'll bring in lenders as well. So we'll bring in lenders to come and talk about certain things as it relates to loan programs. And then starting a business, we'll bring in, other entrepreneurs. I hear we got some billionaires somewhere in Gastonia. We got millionaires walking around us that you don't even know. So, yeah. So, pass the hobnobs with them all the time. So, yeah, insurance agents, to know about insurance, especially as it relates to investment property. Because if y'all know of anybody that has investment property, just know there's two types of insurance for a home. There's owner-occupant insurance, and then there's insurance for homes that aren't occupied by the owner, right? So you need to make sure, because you could have something happen to a home and you have a renter in it, and if the insurance company find that out, then you're out of luck if the house burned down, because they're not going to cover it. It's a special type of dwelling insurance for renters. So all these different types of things, I know a lot of this just because I've done research and stuff. We'll have people come in. I have my good friend, Mr. Antonio Nickel from Rock Hill. He's very active in the Rock Hill and York County government. But special things that he's very active in the tax incremental finance. Is that what it is? TIF funding for special capital projects for cities. And the thing about that intrigues me is a lot of these conversations that are happening in the government. I know, Pastor, you're very active in the Gaston government. There's a lot of conversations are happening at tables that we aren't invited to, right? And so having people that are plugged into these special tables that are listening what's going on, they can keep us informed so that we can be active, in those particular areas. So we'll have people like him come, and he doesn't know it yet, but he's going to do a session at some point. So, but yeah, bringing in other professionals to be able to help us. So this is a organization that hopefully we'll be able to use to network, be able to use to increase our own knowledge, and then of course our knowledge as a group, so we can do more with together, as a people. That makes sense? Yeah. Oh, the next one. I said all that. No. So the next workshop, so our workshops are 10, right now they're locked in on the first Saturdays of the month. So we'll have a new workshop first Saturdays. We'll let you know what that next topic is going to be. Again, home ownership will probably be a recurring theme because that's so important. But we may do like a credit one, credit workshop where we dig it, because let people know exactly how you can repair your credit for free and go in and do the things you need to do in order to get your credit score up. We'll do other types of workshops as well. And we would like to hear from you guys on what some of the things that you would like to have talked about, especially we can know ahead of time so we can get professionals lined up if we need to cover everything. Do you want to say something? You good? You want? Okay. So, right. So for anybody online that has a question or wants to be, or anybody here that wants to be able to either offer a suggestion or they have additional questions about anything that was discussed, if you can send a message to centerbaptistchurch@yahoo.com with the subject workshop, then we'll have that message and we can actually get back to you and let you know what the answer to your question is or be able to take your feedback. So it's centerbaptistchurch@yahoo.com. All right. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you, and we look forward to being able to grow this forum and be able to take it to a whole nother level. Thank you so much for those that joined online.